So kicking off this new series that's centered around something that I'm pretty passionate about, which is leadership, something that I like to call perfectly imperfect leadership. Because I'm a big proponent of we're humans first, and part of being human is that we are imperfect. We don't always get it right. But as long as we're learning lessons, acting on our learnings, continuously improving, that's really what's important. And I'm especially passionate about leadership. So when I decided to do an official deep dive into coaching others, the reason I landed on leadership specifically is because I wanted to have the biggest impact on as many people as possible. And wherever you are in your career, I'm sure you can draw experience from either really good leaders in your past or really bad leadership, and what that did to you as an individual, and really how that ripples into our lives, right? So if we have good leadership in our circle, in our lives, that trickles down throughout a team, and then it trickles out into the circles or the realms of those individual team members. So that's why there's a big focus for me specifically on leadership. And it doesn't necessarily mean that this message is only for leaders. I think there's things that can be drawn even if people leadership is not on your radar, or maybe it is, right? Maybe you don't currently have people that report directly to you, but maybe that's within your aspirations. And so my biggest passion or desire, if you will, is to help better equip as many people as possible. And that's really the main topic for today's session, is basically abolishing not-enoughness, right? Like, I've had enough with the not-enoughness, because there is no destination, if you will. It's always about the journey. Someone rises up the ranks, becomes the CEO of a large organization, more likely than not, depending, where they are, maybe within, their trajectory, is they might want to accomplish more. Maybe they want to be an advisor or on a board or become the CEO of a larger organization, right? There's never that one destination that, like, okay, now I'm gonna stop. Now I'm done. I've arrived, if you will. So there's never enoughness. And if there's never that enoughness, when or how are any of us ever supposed to be fulfilled, right? So it's a little bit of a mindset shift, because that is how a lot of us are programmed to think. Not to go off too much on a tangent there, but it's just something that I'm really passionate about, is holding space for working hard, accomplishing goals, but also feeling fulfillment, feeling like what we've done can be enough, right? And part of that is a little bit of a perfectionism mentality. I posted something on LinkedIn not too long ago about, are you allergic to B's, meaning B grade, right? So B grade is actually still above average, but we strive for the A, or we strive for the A plus. And sometimes B work or even C work is actually fine, because the tasks or the projects are inconsequential. They're of minimal importance. And then there's other things that we do need to strive for, that A plus work. It is meaningful, it is impactful. There's benefits to actually delivering top-notch work. And part of it is just having that awareness, often self-awareness of when that subpar, quote unquote, if you don't see me on camera, work is acceptable. And it's something that I think is pretty prevalent around successful people because one, you may have gotten into those spaces because you were doing a good job. So you get promoted and you feel like that obviously needs to continue, right? You need to continue to do stellar work, but it's always striving for excellence and excellence. And of course, I'm not saying striving for excellence is a bad thing or that we want to be mediocre by any means, right? But finding that proper balance of you can still be a rock star, you can still excel, you can still shine, you can still set a good example for the rest of your team and also have some self-compassion and know when it's appropriate to delegate things, when it's appropriate to actually not do things, right? Oftentimes, you know, I ran into these issues myself, right? Especially on the early part of COVID is okay, if more work is being thrown on me, I just need to do it. I need to do it because I'm the leader here. So I need to be able to protect my team and I need to be able um, to handle this work, right? It wouldn't be thrown my way if I wasn't capable without really pausing to think, number one, is this a realistic workload? Number two, what sort of example is being set for the rest of the team? Number three, it's really leading to burnout, right? And so obviously we're not going to feel fulfilled there. It's going to trickle down to the rest of the team. And it's going to have negative impact in the long run because either one of two things will happen is your workforce will start to leave because they see what the expectation is by the sample examples that are being set. Or number two, people will keep striving for those unattainable goals or accomplishments or expectations of what a workday should look like and eventually get burnt out and eventually leave, right? So they'll either leave sooner or they'll leave later, or it'll just become a toxic environment if we want to throw a third option in there. And, you know, there's flavors and colors of things that happen in between there, but those are the most prevalent things that will happen when we set those examples. And a lot of it does boil down to, number one, yes, self-awareness of knowing what our priorities are, what our organization's priorities are, but also we get hung up. And I mean, this is normal human behavior, right? We get hung up on looking a certain way or presenting something to the rest of the world. And it's always, you know, we're super concerned about what other people think of us, right? And it could be our direct reports, it could be our boss, it could be our boss's boss. So we want to maybe look good or be right or get credit or etc., right? But it's always that balance. So would you rather be liked or do what's right? Or would you rather keep the peace or have productive conflict? Or would you rather be the hero versus teach others on your team how to better communicate or develop their leadership skills, or, you know, any plethora of things, right? So is stopping to reflect on, are we making those decisions on how much we take on or how much of our perfectionism seeps through because we're really just wrapped up on what other people are going to think of us. And so when we start to differentiate, right, is what's important, what's our priorities, right? And that does take some work, right? Like that's something that I'll do with my clients. Is one of the very first things we do is just sit down and get really aligned on what their specific values are, because our values are unique to each of us, right? Things that I value, for example, are humility, honesty, things of that nature. And so because they're very important to me, when I'm in environments or interacting with people that don't align with those values, I feel out of place and it just feels very unnatural, right? But each one of you listening to this is going to have your own subset of values, and that's going to be your individual North Star. You'll also have values of your organization or your team, your bigger goals, and it's working on aligning all of those things to make sure that they're in sync, that not only are you accomplishing organizational goals, supporting your team, but also at the end of the day that you focus on making sure that you're aligned and at peace with those bigger things, because not only are we working on, or actually it's my desire to help people be better leaders, but also to feel like they are enough, to feel satisfied and fulfilled with their work. And it's not one or the other. Those two things can reside, but we do have to be intentional about how we go about things. So yeah, I mean, those are a few ways that this not enoughness can present. Also, it can present in different ways, like maybe others aren't enough. So if others aren't enough, then maybe we can't delegate. Maybe we always have to be in control because no one can do it like I can do it, or this project is my baby, or this company is my baby. And number one, that doesn't help develop others. Number two, you're just piling a bunch of work on your own plate, which is going to lead to burnout and just other issues. So when we can work on that, which I'll share here shortly, is some ways that we can reframe that. But you know, those are some ways that not enoughness can present itself, or also in all or nothing thinking, feeling like you have to have all of your ducks in a row, or if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it all. One example I like to share in my own life is push-ups. For the life of me, for the longest time, I couldn't do a dang push-up. But when I kind of had a slice of that humble pie and said, okay, I'm going to drop. I'm not going to do a proper push-up. I'm going to do it on my knees. It was easier. I was able to do them. Then I built up my strength in that way. And then ultimately, now I'm able to do a proper push-up, right? But if I would have let myself get hung up on, if I'm not going to do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all. I promise you I'd still be sitting here not being able to do a single push-up. So sometimes just either being vulnerable, being humble, knowing, okay, I might not be able to do it perfectly now, but the more either I fail or the more I practice, I will be able to do things better, right? It's a little bit of a mind shift there. So there's different ways that we can work on that concept of not enoughness. It can be a reframe, as I mentioned. So instead of saying, I can't fail, maybe that turns into, you know what, each failure is a lesson. It's a new way for me to learn things, right? So I can't fail means what? Everything I do has to be perfect. It has to succeed, which number one is impossible, but number two is very limiting, right? Because we might not try things that will help us grow for fear of failing, or we might kill ourselves in the process of, you know, staying up crazy hours, reworking things that were probably fine to begin with. When we reframe that into saying, okay, if I fail, I'm going to learn from it, and then I'm going to get better and better and better, that can be quite impactful thing. Is instead of limiting ourselves to, nope, this is what it is, put our blinders on, we can reframe it into something positive, right? And so whatever our particular or your particular hang-up might be, there's a way to reframe it in a positive and productive way that will, number one, serve you, and number two, be one of those ways to actually make you or the task at hand feel like it is enough. Another way to go about it is having a motto or a mantra, something short, something memorable that you can repeat to yourself, right? So in that same vein of failure, one might think, fail fast, learn fast, right? So when we feel that creeping in, fail fast, learn fast, fail fast, learn fast. That will start kind of ingraining itself in our brain, and more it'll become natural, and it won't be something that we have to constantly repeat to ourselves necessarily, because it'll be a habit that we've built by having this little mantra, if you will. Another way that we can go about it is reframing it into an if-then type scenario. So if I keep failing and learning, then I will inevitably find success, right? So maybe if I keep saying inevitably many times, I'll be able to say it successfully. But yeah, those are a few ways that we can conquer that not enoughness. One other way is surrounding yourself in supporting environments, right? And that might be finding a mentor, finding an ally, finding a coach, finding an accountability partner, really as much as is within your power, finding a support system that will help you feel like you are enough versus maybe gaslighting, maybe unsupportive environments. So some reflection there on what you can do. I will be having more of these sessions, planning to not only have them on LinkedIn, but also YouTube. So if you missed this session, I will be adding to comments and show notes and such, so you're able to catch me in other channels. But thank you for tuning in. Hope to catch you soon.